member of the California Arts Council and Beverly Hills Arts Commission, is the former West Coast editor of Andy Warhol's Interview magazine and society editor of the Herald Examiner. Her cover stories can be read in Venice and Detour magazines, and she is a contributing editor to California Apparel News. For the next half hour, Joan will bring you inside news and views on society, art, film, and the exhilarating worlds of these multifaceted people. Here is Joan Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to Joan Quinn, etc. We're really happy you're with us today. We have two wonderful guests, Joan Ransohoff and Sandie Newton. They both belong to the Associates of the American Film Institute, so we'll be talking a little bit about AFI today, too. Joan Ransohoff is the mother of Erica and Stephen, the wife of producer Martin Ransohoff, and president of the Associates of the American Film Institute. We call that AFI. And she's a full-time painter. This is typical for a woman to be able to do three full-time jobs, Joan. How do you do it?
Well, actually, my goal is to be a full-time painter. I don't get to paint full-time. I really do it part-time. It's still at the hobby stage, but my goal really is to be able to devote 7 days a week to doing it because I really enjoy it. I love it, and it's become a way of life.
How long have you been painting?
I started painting about 6 years ago. I always had wanted to paint in oil. I painted in school and in watercolor, and I drew, but I never worked in oil. And that was always a dream of mine. And 6 years ago, I just started. And I signed up with a teacher in Santa Monica, and I've been painting ever since.
Who have you studied with?
I study currently with two women. One is Monique Bordeaux, who's a Belgian artist, who is classically trained in Europe for most of her life. And I also study with Helen Winslow, who is a wonderful teacher and is herself quite a renowned artist.
Do you ever dream about artists that you would like to study with, or artists in the past that
Monet,
you
Monet. I would love to have studied with Monet. One of my goals is to be able to go to Giverny, his home in the south of France, and be able to paint there.
Have you been there?
No, I haven't.
I was there last summer, and it's so beautiful, and the flowers, and people are sketching, and the smell is so wonderful. It's a treat. It's a treat.
They have a number of seminars there in the summertime as well as the fall, and you can go and literally paint all day long on the premises, and that's what I would love to do.
Well, they have a support group, the Friends of Giverny, and the American, the person who takes the donations for Giverny in America is in New York, and the foundation is in New York.
Wonderful.
And it's so, when you see what people have done and how they've helped the gardens and how perfect the house is, I mean, it's just a dream. It really looks great.
Well, I hope to see it soon.
Are any of these paintings today influenced?
Well, very much so. This painting here, I can't see, oh, there it is a direct inspiration of Monet. It's painted, and I'm not exactly sure of the area where it's painted, but it is absolutely an inspiration of his work.
We're going to have that on the screen in just a minute.
Okay,
and,
all right.
And it's there.
There it is. He was very fond of the harbors, the mini harbors in France in the summertime, and it's just a beautiful scene of boats and country life.
What is your favorite medium?
My favorite medium is oil, there's no question.
And did you learn just all the technical things in the last 6 years, or do you start experimenting yourself and finding new ways to do things?
I started experimenting. I worked for a while in acrylic. Acrylic has the great advantage of drying very quickly, but that is precisely now what I love about oil, that it doesn't dry so quickly and you can play with it for a number of days before it is really dry.
And this wonderful still life?
This still life is inspired by Edward Manet. Towards the end of his life, when he was very sick and bedridden, his friends sent him small bouquets of flowers, and he wasn't able to sit up, but he painted in bed, and these were all very small paintings of vases of flowers.
And the dark, I think the dark background was very much him.
Absolutely. Most of his backgrounds are very dark, and his flowers and his florals.
Do you paint at home, or do you have a studio?
I paint. I have a studio. Actually, we just built a studio, which is the culmination of my life's dream because I'm able to lay everything out in one room and close the door and walk away. and it's terrific. It has great lighting, and you can paint at night. I have track lighting, or we have skylights, so there's perfect light all day long. And I will frequently set up a still life there and paint it for weeks.
But that's the thing of having a full-time job. Other people have full-time jobs during the day, and people who are very active have full-time jobs at night too.
That's right.
Several full-time jobs.
I mean, it's great because you can go in there and just paint, and there's no phone in there, and no one can bother you, and it's delightful.
You live on the west side, and
Right.
that was kind of a few years ago, the kind of on the circuit of people having private screenings and doing screenings. I know your husband's a producer, and he's
The
made
Bel Air screenings.
the
right.
Bel Air screenings. Tell us a little bit about what that was, and if it still happens.
Well, it definitely happens. He is a film producer, so he frequently will screen films at home.
His own or
his
other
own,
people?
Both. A lot of times if he's shooting a film, it will be shot in Canada, for instance, and they will fly the dailies down, and he will look at them in our screening room.
So it's really business.
It's
too.
business, very much so, and then we'll also use it to show films that we haven't seen or hadn't had a chance to catch.
So is it still as prevalent? Is it still kind of like the A thing to do?
I don't know. My husband feels very strongly, as I do, that it's always more interesting to see a movie in a theater setting, a large theater, because it's good to get the reaction of the people and
For
the
his
audience.
movies.
For his films as well as other films. There are Dances with Wolves, for instance. It's hard to imagine certain films on a home theater.
I see.
You need the feeling of a big screen experience.
Tell us some of the movies that he's produced.
Well, he's made, I think, almost 53 films. He's done Silver Streak, Ice Station Zebra, The Americanization of Emily, Cincinnati Kid, most recently Jagged Edge, Switching Channels.
That was great, yeah.
Yeah, he's done.
So is that how your life got involved with AFI?
Well, actually it is, because when I first, 12 years ago, when I was first married to my husband, I really was introduced to a group of film people, and I really became very interested in film, and I didn't have any specific connection to the industry, so I began to, you felt sort of, I remember saying that if you hadn't been to at least 2 screenings a week, you felt like you didn't know what was going on in the world, so you suddenly became immersed in the film madness, but I really loved the whole process.
And then how did you start at AFI? Did you start as a volunteer? Are you still a volunteer?
I'm still a volunteer, always a volunteer. I started actually in 1988, officially on the board, and prior to that as a volunteer. And I became very interested in the conservatory, the school itself, the American Film Institute, which is located in Hollywood, and the different events that go on there. And then I was introduced by a good friend to the Associates. And the Associates is a specific fundraising organization. All we really do is raise money for the Institute to try and further their goals.
And what would the money that you raise be used for at
Well, they have
the
3
school?
primary goals. Their first goal really is to advance the recognition of the moving image as an art form. Their second goal is to preserve that art form as part of a permanent library on videotape, etc. And the third is to identify and develop and train new talent, and that they do through the school.
That was one of the things I was going to ask you about, what you think film is, if you think it's an art form or if it's historically relevant in a way, or how people look at
Well, I think they look at it in all of those ways. I think it really is the universal language, and I think it most definitely is historical. Documentaries, it's all part of it.
And do you fund young filmmakers? Is
Yes,
that part
we do.
of the programs?
Yes,
I
we
know
do.
there's several programs. Do you want to just
There
tell
are
us
a
little
number
bit?
of programs. We have the first of all is the docent program that we are conducting currently, and that's where we take a group of high school students, like Jordan High School students, who are film students. We bring them up to AFI. We show them West Side Story, and Robert Wise, who directed the film, speaks to them about it. And these art students made a film called Watts Side Story.
Oh, that's great.
Which was based on the riots in Watts, and they do skits, reenact skits from that play.
And are they filmed or are they just live performances?
They are live performances in that case, and then we have a discussion comparing both of those films, and it's very topical today. Many of these kids are former gang members, and they're now in the arts program, and they're very, very curious about art and very interested in the professions of film and television. So we like being part of that.
I know one of you have a women's
Directing women's workshop.
Yes, I think that's renowned, is it
That
not?
is renowned. Most people don't realize that there are probably close to 300 directors, and only 15 of those are women. And we really like being part of that process of advancing the training of women. One of the films we premiered last year was Rambling Rose, directed by Martha Coolidge. And we're very proud of the Directing Women's Workshop.
Who has come out of that workshop and been recognized? Is there anyone yet?
Well, Gail Ann Hurd is very
Right.
involved with it. Randa Haynes, I believe, is. Martha Coolidge, like I mentioned. And I'm trying to think of who else. A number of women. I can't think of anyone else at the moment, but these are prominent films
Yes.
that we have personally premiered, so that's why I'm familiar with those.
Is there a headquarters for American Film Institute?
Yes, there is a campus, and it's in Hollywood on Western Avenue, and it actually used to be a Catholic girls' high school, and the American Film Institute bought the campus, and it has now it's been expanded and become a very elaborate setting.
Are you associated with Washington, D.C. in any way?
Yes, the Washington office, and there's a New York office as well.
That's what I was wondering.
They have distinct programs, but similar to ours in the fundraising
But
sense.
are you all together?
We are all part of the American Film Institute.
So the money that you raise here goes to your campus, but you're still a part of
Right,
the
but
Washington.
Exactly.
And you all cooperate, obviously.
We share information and programs, and if I'm in New York, I can go to the New York Film Office and check out. It's very interesting to see what's going on in the different cities.
Well, we love the art you brought, and we love the knowledge that you've given us about AFI, and we're going to have Sandie Newton on.
Terrific.
Who's also a member of the Associates. Will
She
you
is.
stay on with us?
I'd be delighted. Thank you.
And we'll be right back after the break, and stay with us to see Sandie Newton and Joan Ransohoff. Hi, welcome back. I'm Joan Quinn, and we're on the set with AFI Associate President Joan Ransohoff, and joining her is a member of the AFI Associates, Sandie Newton. When you see Sandie, you'll recognize her immediately because she started in television in 1980 and is familiar as a TV host. In fact, we thought of turning the show over to Sandie today and letting her host Joan Quinn, etc.
Oh, great.
Hi, Sandie.
Hi, thank you.
Did you start locally in TV?
You know, I actually did. I started back in 1980, now that you remind me, it seems so long ago, with PM Magazine here in Los Angeles, which was on Channel 11. And for 2 years I did that, which was terrific because I had just moved from New York. I went to college in Manhattan, originally from the Northwest, and I didn't know Los Angeles, and I was kind of, constantly getting lost on freeways. And if you remember, PM Magazine was kind of a traveling show. We shot everywhere around the Los Angeles area, and before I knew it, I was like a tour guide. I knew exactly where the Shrine Auditorium was, I knew where the Forum was. It was great.
Was that your chosen career?
Well, yes and no. I was telling Joan actually that art was always big in my life, and I thought I might have gone into art. I don't think I'm nearly as talented as Joan.
Is that right? You didn't want to be an actress?
No, I didn't. That wasn't something that was in my blood. I did, though, for about 10 minutes.
That's interesting because you didn't go to Hollywood to be an actress.
Yeah, it's very funny. I think most people do come to Hollywood, of course, to act. But and I did, and sometimes you'll see reruns of Happy Days or Mork and Mindy, and a slightly darker version of myself appears. But I sort of got very lucky with broadcasting and really have enjoyed it all these years.
Well, how did you get your first job?
It was one of those, you were at the right place at the right time.
That happens so often, doesn't it?
It does. I heard that Mary Hart, actually, who of course has gone on to fame and fortune with Entertainment Tonight, was leaving her post at PM Magazine. And I went up for an audition, and they tested, I guess, a bunch of people, and then said, gee, well, you know, you've never done this sort of thing. I had done commercials and whatever, and they said, but we'll give you a shot.
And that was it?
Yeah.
And now you've gone on to fame and fortune.
Well, relatively. Well, yeah, I guess it's all relative, isn't it? Yeah, I
yes, I think,
enjoy it.
When you started, also some of the things that you did were in syndication. Is that right? Tell us a little bit about what that is. Tell the.
Well, syndication. There's so many different kinds of television programming. Syndication is when a show isn't necessarily being done by a network, a major network like ABC or CBS or NBC or now Fox, the newest in the network business, or on cable, of course, which we are on now, and of course is very big. It's programming that producers come up with and sell to independent stations, whether it be in this market, Channel 11, 9, 5, or 13, or they will sell sometimes syndication programs to the network affiliates.
What was PM Magazine, a syndicated?
That was in fact a syndication as well as a local production. That was a very interesting combination of both.
But you did other syndicated shows, didn't you?
I did quite a few, yeah. I did Our Magazine for 3 years. That was the Gary Collins show that I was the lifestyle reporter for. And actually a bunch of other shows. I've done so many, you know. It's funny when you look at your resume, you start realizing, ooh.
Do they come to you for, syndicated directors, people?
I think what they do is they usually formulate the package, the show. They get their producers on board, and then they look for their talent, their hosts, whomever.
Then, leaving that and leaving the network, you went into cable, which seems like the opposite way of doing things.
It sort of does, but you know, cable is so powerful right now. And I did a show that was very successful on USA Network for 5 years called Hollywood Insider, which is still running. I left.
They're just or somebody else is doing
someone else
it?
is hosting it, yeah. I left the show in '89 to have my son, who's now 2.5. And then really was going to take about a year off and not go back, as so many mothers, older mothers, have decided to do, to take some time off. But then sort of got seduced back into television by E! Entertainment Television, which again is cable.
Oh, is that how it happened? You were off for a while? Because I watched you all the time on E! Entertainment.
Yeah.
And the PM show, so
Right.
I followed your career for quite a while.
Yeah.
Your hostessing career.
Yes.
Tell us
right.
what the difference is between hosting and anchoring.
Gee,
'Cause you
it's all
anchor, too.
semantics. Yeah, it really is. Well, I guess if you're in the news industry, they call it reporting/anchor or anchor/reporter.
Which you're doing now, right, on NBC?
Yes, and they call that being a correspondent. It really is semantics, and I think a lot of it has to do with figures and what the agents sort of get for you when they're making out the contracts.
Oh, I see. Well, what do you do as an anchor?
Anchoring tends to be traditionally a newsreader. In England, they call them newsreaders,
Right.
and Australia. Anchoring is when you are the person reading the news or reading the entertainment story, or whatever it is, as opposed to hosting, which tends to be more entertainment-oriented programming.
And
You'd be a host, for instance, as opposed to an anchor. This is entertaining.
what about a correspondent? Because you also had a title of correspondent.
Yes. Oh, I've had lots of titles. Lots of titles. I think correspondent tends to imply that you're a roving reporter. I haven't traveled an awful lot on this show that I'm doing for NBC right now, but
That's what you are, a correspondent on
Yes.
that?
Mhm.
And what, on
Correct.
prime time?
Well, I do
Oh, no.
Primetime Tonight Minutes, which are an entertainment news feed that goes out to the NBC network, which is kind of a little like a video TV guide. They're nightly news cut-ins.
But you're an anchor on that.
Yes, they right. They call me an anchor. I know.
Then the other
you
one
tell
you-
me. You know, I've forgotten what.
Then the other one
I'm
was
also a correspondent. It's
John
very
Tesh.
John Tesh, right?
You're a correspondent.
Yes, on John's show.
Did you go out and actually research your stories, or?
We have a fabulous research department in New York. Veronica Bennett, who was Barbara Walters' head of research, I guess, for quite a while, researches this show, and she's wonderful. And we literally get anywhere from 40 to 70 pages on each entertainer that we interview, and it's so thorough that very often I find them saying, "Gee, I don't even remember that. You found things I didn't know."
But then what happens? Then do you write your own script as the correspondent?
Yes, we have producers with us who help, and then we of course conduct the interviews, and then they're all edited, back in the land of Magic Network.
What's next for Sandie?
Well, you know what? You always think what's next professionally. Right now, we're kind of, as a lot of people are going through, should we have another child or not? So when you say that, the first thing that comes to my mind, because my husband and I have been talking about this all
You
week.
have a development deal.
Yes. Well, are we going to, right, in development, are we going to do another baby or not? So it's...
But that's very trendy.
It's very trendy,
Isn't
yeah.
it, among
Yeah.
hosts, women
Yes,
hosts,
yes.
and newscasters, and correspondents, and reporters?
Yeah, it really
To
is.
put all those titles on?
And you'd be amazed at how much mail you get when you're pregnant. You know, for so long I thought I was hiding it so well. Obviously my hands and face were not hiding it, because I got lots of mail saying, you must be pregnant.
You mean
look like...
before you announced it?
Yeah, before I announced it. So I guess I was like a little puffer fish, and people figured it out before I made the big announcement.
That's really great, though, because that shows your following. That's what I was going to ask you. When you're on a network show or shows that go all over, do you start thinking about all the millions of people who are watching you?
Boy, you hope there are just dozens that even know who you are. But you know, it is funny. It is funny that you will find that people do follow your career and even obscure those, as I said, those Happy Days reruns. I'll get people who've seen those, who then have seen me on something else, and right back and forth. And it's very flattering to think that people actually keep track or even care about where you're going to be next.
Joan,
Kinda
you're
nice.
a good friend of Sandie's. If you're walking down the street, do people do like a double take when they see her?
Well, I don't know if they do that, but I know that people have known Sandie for years and watched her, you know, evolve from one project to another. So I don't know. I think they're usually so happy to see her with her toddler.
Oh, yes.
Do you take the baby
yes.
in?
I do. Well, yeah, when I can. You know, it's not always appropriate because...
But when the baby was a baby, the baby's big now,
Yes,
2 years
now,
old.
right.
It's a little harder.
Yeah, now that he's
Tell-
totally verbalizing.
Who is he? How,
His name is Douglas Newton Gribben, and he's 2.5.
and he did go on the set with you in the
yeah,
beginning?
he has. He has. When he was really little, I used to like to take him around and kind of just prop him up and get him used to it. And before he started toddling over to wires and putting cables in his mouth and things that weren't too appropriate.
But it works then for a mother, so you don't have to leave
it
them
does.
right away. You
Well-
don't have to leave them at home.
Yeah, I think if you've waited long enough to have kids, that it's really nice to be able to involve.
Integrate them, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, and I think they like it. He, in the very beginning, he was every blonde that was on TV. He was saying, you know, "Mommy, mommy." And I would be like, "Wait a minute, it's not quite."
That's great. That's a great story. You always think your child knows who you are, but the other thing that's so great is when somebody says "mommy," every mother jumps
Right.
because
That's right.
you can't recognize the voice. You just know it all. They all sound alike. I know you're a volunteer at AFI, and do you have any specific thing that you really liked about the American Film Institute?
Well, I'm just, as Joan said, I'm such a big fan of film myself. My father was a manager of the Paramount Theater in Portland, Oregon while I was growing up. So I think my earliest recollections of really being interested in film were just sitting through a movie over and over and over again and really being so impressed with the magic of filmmaking. And when the AFI Associates, when I heard about the organization, I thought, gee, that's really a nice organization to be involved with because of my love for film and wanting to continue to support different areas such as the Women in Filmmaking and the student projects.
Do you ever go out and lecture for them, or do you go up to the school and take part in any of the classes?
I'm probably too new a member to do that. I think as soon as I get a little more, I've been a member 2 years,
Yeah.
and Joan is such a terrific president.
We will get her more involved, is she? Then she'll get pregnant again. So
Well, then she'll have time to
And
come
then-
up there.
and she can bring
spend-
both the children.
She can spend time. Would you ever think of taking a class up there? Would there be a class that
Oh,
she could
yeah.
take, Joan?
I'm sure there are classes she could take. I'm sure there are classes she could give. There are a number of seminars and workshops. There's comedy workshops, writing, all sorts of seminars. The Directing Women's Workshop has a number of programs and events that they put on. So I'm sure there are a lot of things.
Sandie, do you think you'll ever direct? Do you ever think about
Isn't that funny? I have no interest. Do you have any interest?
No,
in that
I
stuff?
have no interest. I'm fascinated by the process of storytelling, of the whole process of training filmmakers.
But you wouldn't direct, produce. Do you
well,
want to get out of this in any way?
No, I enjoy it too much. I was at Channel 9 for 3 years here locally, and I was the entertainment reporter there. So I did produce my own pieces, as you do in news. And I really enjoyed that. But as far as doing something theatrical, I think that my limitations are really more reality-based and more reporting than actual storytelling, as you said. But it doesn't mean that I, in any way, you know, it lessens the importance of my interest in film.
Do you have a dream career that we don't know about?
Gee. Oh, I don't know. I guess continuing to do more of the same. I mean, isn't that what we all want to do? Because it just seems if you found a niche that you really feel comfortable in, it's so nice to get up every morning and love doing what you're doing.
That is great, but didn't you ever want to be a singer or a lawyer?
Boy, I tell you, I wish I had a voice. I have the soul. I have it in me. I don't have. It doesn't come out that anyone would want to hear it. But and certainly, as Joan has shown, what a wonderful expression this is.
Isn't this wonderful? Yeah. And did you see the painting
just
behind
beautiful.
me? I didn't get to see it up
just
close
beautiful.
because they're.
Yeah, I really do wish I had a creative outlet like this because, as Joan said, it's so nice to just go into that studio and turn off the phones and just have that time to yourself.
Do you write?
I don't write other than just a journal that I keep for myself and for my son.
Oh, you do keep a journal?
Yeah.
It's so time-consuming, isn't it?
It is, but I find if I just, even once a week, just write a little scripture of what sort of is going on and try to keep myself, you know.
That's a great, I wish I had done that, especially when my children were small.
I never did it either, because I always think it's so time-consuming, but I think if you look at it the way Sandie was talking about it, and just saying 2 or 3 things or
however you keep a daily planner. You can just look at your daily planner and then you get a nightmare, you know, at the end of the week.
It's true. It's true.
You did that
and
all
you know
in
what
1
I
week.
do, which is very funny? I color code everything with magic markers. If it's a screening, it's green. If it's a, you know, if it's what, and so if it's travel, it's yellow. If it's a sporting event, it's orange. And so it looks like kind of like a kid got to my
nutritionist. It's blue.
Our producer Helen Stansberry does the same thing. If you look at her script, you see orange, green, blue, pink, and she's always so organized. Helen.
It does. You know, I really think it helps because at just a moment's glance, if I'm on the phone, I can look down, and if someone says Thursday night, I go, "Ooh, it's pink. I guess I'm going to a screening or you know whatever," and it's terrific.
If it's pink, it's a screening.
Right.
Do you have time to work out or?
Well, that's a little, yeah.
Do you?
You know, I used to be one of those people who worked out all the time. I thought I was in good shape. I was really a zealot, and I have if there's anything in my schedule that's fallen a bit short, it's doing any kind of organized workout. But I figure with the 2.5-year-old and then working, I'm running so much that I'm doing aerobics and just mothering.
What about entertaining? Joan was talking about screenings up at the house and having people over to see Marty's movies and different films that they hadn't seen. What do you do for entertainment?
Well, my husband's in radio, and we like to entertain, but kind of small, intimate. As I know a lot of people have tended to say that it gets that way with the busy work day and both of us coming home from sometimes long hours and just being overloaded with media and everything else, that we kind of like to just sit down either with a couple of friends or even with each other and
entertain each other.
Exactly.
Well, we've stopped entertaining the people on Joan Quinn, etc. today, and you've both been great entertainers.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Joan.
And we'll see you again. Goodbye, and come back to Joan Quinn, etc. next time.